Hey, in this video, I'm going to walk you through the exact copy, playbook, and system we use to book 37 in-person calls, including meetings with Airbus and MongoDB from one campaign on behalf of our client. This was an event-based campaign. And if you're going to events or planning to go to events, you're going to watch this video through to the end because I believe this is the one campaign every business should be running. Because why would you go to an event, travel across the country, spend all this money only to run around like a chicken with your head cut off, hoping that you run into the right person, the right business, the right job title that you actually want to be talking to and potentially turn into, obviously, revenue at the other end for your business? Instead, wouldn't it be a better idea to preset these meetings with only the qualified companies and qualified attendees, and potentially even ones with signals that prove that to you, to make sure that when you show up to an event, you're getting as many sales conversations or at least beneficial conversations in as possible? That way, going into an event, you already know just based off the pre-booked meetings that it's paid for itself. To me, it's a no-brainer. And especially if you're in saturated markets, it's something you definitely want to be doing. So let's kind of dive in and walk through exactly how you can execute on event-based campaigns in order to maximize your event experiences and the revenue you get from them. So there's a few ways to do this. Obviously, you can be cold calling, cold emailing, sending LinkedIn messages. In this case, we kept it to LinkedIn manually via the SDRs on our client's team, as well as cold email automated through us, which is actually the biggest winner. We accounted for around 60 to 70% of the kind of total meetings booked at the venue. It's really not just about outbound, it's also about event intelligence. It's about putting yourself in the right area and position to be successful when you attend the event, not just pre-booking meetings. And so what did that look like? Well, step one, you do need to make sure that if the event has an event portal, that you're scraping the event portal. In order to scrape the event portal, I would recommend grabbing an MCP server off of something like Pipedream. And on Pipedream, there's this awesome MCP for Selenium and Puppeteer. And basically, Selenium and Puppeteer are the gold standards for scraping. They'll let you build custom scrapers that are browser-based, so you can scrape portals without worrying about things like Cloudflare. Because as long as you're scraping from like a more residential device, you're typically going to be able to overcome blocking. So this would be what I would recommend. I think Puppeteer is actually the one here. There we go. Perfect. Puppeteer. So that'll let you do the scraping that you need to do. So once you get the scraping out of the way, and the second way that you can handle the scraping is through something like Easy Scraper, if it's a relatively defenseless portal, you're going to have to go ahead and enrich the list, make sure that they're qualified, so on and so forth. I have an entire workflow. If you want it, you can DM me for it. Just shoot me a message on Twitter or something. But once you get all of the data, all of the emails, and you supply maybe some phone numbers to the SDR team, you really want to make sure you're getting all the event data possible, because not everyone signs up for the portal. There's going to be a lot of businesses that don't sign up for the portal and don't mention themselves attending on social media. So what can you do? Well, what we did is we did three things. We scraped the portal. We went ahead and we grabbed all of the attending companies listed on the event portal's website. In this case, it was for AI4, a massive AI event. And we actually listened on social media actively for 3 weeks leading up to the event for everyone posting about the event using its hashtag. And we sifted through to make sure there was no noise of people, posting the wrong keyword. If you want to do this yourself, I would recommend using something like OctoLens, which will allow you to monitor all social medias for keywords, or something like Trigify, if you want to have more kind of LinkedIn-based social intelligence, okay? And what this will allow you to do is monitor these keywords every single hour and webhook them out of the platform into something like Clay in order to make sure that you're qualifying these posts as their correct post and then qualifying out the individuals as people that are potentially attending. So that's the second way to get attendee data that you can then contact. And the third way is by scraping the portal and then making guesses around the job titles that may be attending based on their physical location, make sure they're in like US headquarters, and then also based on their job titles. But this would get different messaging and is generally slightly less effective. But the real value of this kind of social listening, as you can see here, is that it had a catalog of after parties. It had dinners. It had special events that could have access requested to and forms to fill out in order to gain access. And that led our clients, members that were going to this event to be able to get into conversations when the drinks start flowing and people get a little bit looser. They're a little bit less uptight, good conversations are had, relationships are built, and you really get like a sort of everlasting kind of friend, almost like a champion inside of a business that you can use to potentially move up the ladder from. So, if you want to have the most success with event based campaigns, I would recommend scraping all three. But what kind of message do we actually send? Okay. So the playbook is to ask yourself, how can I create information arbitrage? Events are about pitching a conversation in a much, much more casual way. It's you're doing cool stuff, I'm doing cool stuff. We should probably talk because we're going to be in the same place. It requires much less lift to get people interested in speaking with you as long as you don't come at it from an aggressive sales point, like aggressively salesy point of view. So ask yourself, what type of information arbitrage do you have in this moment that would be beneficial to the prospect? Okay. And so that will come down to their job title. That will come down to what type of market is qualified. It comes down to the specific event. For example, if you're attending a specific SEO event versus an AI SEO event, the type of information arbitrage you would want to provide should be themed around the interests that the person may have as a result of attending that event. This is how you create relevance. Now, information arbitrage is actually the fundamental thing that creates sales in the first place. A person has to believe that you have an arbitrage of information if you're not a pure commodity. And that arbitrage of information, that belief in that knowledge, that specialty knowledge that only you have, becomes belief in execution arbitrage, something you can do for them or a service you can fulfill for them. And social proof only stands to reinforce that. You can blend information arbitrage effectively with social proof to create really, really good event-based outreach. And I'll show you how. So this is the template that we use to book all of these calls. We split tested against their SDR's work, and it performed around 4 to 5 times better than handwritten personal messages. And it involves like a lot of AI work, right? We're using Claygent. We're using complex prompts. And I'll drop a video soon on how we're building these awesome prompts basically in one shot using Claude now, using our custom prompting guidelines. But what this lets us do is send really special messages. They look handwritten. I did a bit of digging on your latest relevant company breakthrough. In this case, we actually referenced the most recent AI product they announced or released or introduced on their website. And we then related back that big breakthrough to anything related to their job title. So in this case, it was more technical roles. So if it was a data role, we would want to talk about like, the QA experience. If it was more of an IT role, we would want to ask questions if they had interesting insights around what the infrastructure scaling looked like for that. Was latency a big thing, right? And so we want to make them feel special. That's step number one. And we want to make sure it feels like a message for them, right? Step number two is to basically pitch the meeting, right? So we have an interest in you. That's step one. Very particular interest. And we want to frame that interest around the big thing we solve, okay? So in this case, it was something to do with scaling as the big kind of pain point and the pains around scaling. And that can apply to labeling, infrastructure, really anything, right? It has cascading downstream effects for anyone. This is how we frame it. A very soft ask. You have information. You're an interesting person. I would like to talk to interesting people. Great. Let me know either way. The follow-up, and if they respond in the first step, is to share the interesting things that we can share with them. And so this is where the social proof comes in. And I've kind of skipped social proof here. For event social proof, just put anyone on your team that's speaking or any booth that you have and the number it is, because you're going to get people that don't want to meet but show up to the booth. In step two, and we leave it at step two, which we send a day later, we say something very casual as the intro. Totally forgot to mention first name. Again, feels handwritten, feels conversational, feels like I just sent a text. We've been working with team. So this is where you can very casually almost drop a case study, but you're really not dropping a case study. Instead, it's highly relevant and contextual to the conversation at hand. So we want to talk about like the thing they're working on, their relevant breakthrough, right? This is what makes it a relevant company breakthrough because we want to tie it into an interesting problem we've recently solved. Can trade some of our learnings there for anything you can share on why, with why being their interesting insights related to their job title around the breakthrough. Okay. This makes it so that there's now information on both sides, information arbitrage between both parties which is the basis for a good conversation, right? A common interest where both parties have differing knowledge bases where they can share them with each other so both parties can learn, ask questions, make jokes, make conversation, share experiences, and talk about themselves in some way, because everyone loves to talk about themselves. And you have an opportunity to set the tone of the conversation prior to even meeting them at the event. So removes that kind of awkward phase of, oh, what do you do? Oh, I already know what you do. And it's really relevant to what we want to be doing. So in order to apply this to yourself, I would recommend doing a lot of research on individual companies first and foremost. So that would be deep research with something like OpenAI or Claude or Google, and try to get a clear picture of recent developments of maybe 10 company accounts and look for patterns between those recent developments and what's most common related to the thing your company does, and look to make relevant connections between what these companies and how they're changing as it relates to the overall context of the event, and tie that in to the copy that you send and the questions you ask. That's my recommendation. Turned into a lot of sales conversations, a lot of good ones with bigger companies. Can't see too deep into kind of the client's inner workings, but they seem extremely happy with how the conversations went. Last thing I'll leave here is just keep the subject line simple. Attending event. Honestly, most of the time, I don't even do the question mark because I think it looks salesy. Attending event. And by the way, this is a custom variable. This should be a variable. So it should be the event name. But yeah, we do a lot of event-based campaigns. I think we booked over 300 meetings this year just off of event-based campaigns so far. So it's the number one campaign I think everyone should be running. If you can't figure out how to scrape it, shoot me a DM. If you want to talk about doing this for your business's next event, book a call. Peace.